experience it for yourself. This is next generation. A car that demands to be driven. This is the new Opel Astra. And the new Opel Astra speaks for itself. Test drive the new Opel Astra at your local Opel dealer now.
On 106 to 108 FM, on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud, and smart speakers. This is News Talk.
A very good night from the newsroom. Comments by the Taoiseach that the nation is facing a frightening wave of cancer diagnoses have been described as surprising by one expert. Micheál Martin warned many people's cancer would not be treatable and that other European countries were facing a similar crisis. Professor John Crown said there was evidence that cancer services were moving back toward a baseline this year and last. However, breast cancer sufferer Sharon Grieve said her diagnosis was delayed because breast check screening was suspended during the pandemic.
If I had been screened when I was due to be screened, I would not have needed the amount of intervention I had in the end. I would not have needed the amount of surgery that I did have and subsequent surgeries and extremely bad reaction to the treatment because I was so weak from all the surgeries. But absolutely, I would have had an easier journey.
The Catholic Bishop of Kerry has said the views expressed in a homily delivered at a Sunday Mass in County Kerry are not representative of the Christian faith. Bishop Ray Brown made the comment, followed by a homily by retired priest Father Sean Sheehy, who described transgenderism and homosexuality as sinful. Father Sheehy addressed parishioners from the pulpit.
And those of you who happen to be leaving today, God help you. That's all I have to say to you. And God bless you who are here and who are worshipping God.
High temperatures in autumn and winter will have serious effects on future food supplies. Average temperatures in October in Ireland were higher than May. Climatologist John Sweeney said this is already having big impacts on the environment.
Animals which should be hibernating at this time of the year still active and consequences all over for our ecosystem from that. So it's part of the price we're going to pay for climate change. We can certainly enjoy the mild temperatures that we have at the moment, but let's remember also that the sea offshore has warmed as well.
Finally, Brazil's president has made his first public speech since losing the country's election 2 days ago, but hasn't conceded defeat. Jair Bolsonaro's chief of staff said the process of transition will begin with Lula da Silva's administration. Some supporters of the outgoing president are refusing to accept the result and have blocked roads. And that's your news for now.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Need a birthday gift she love? Ryanair gift cards. The perfect gift for lovers.
Showers will gradually die out. It'll become mainly dry with clear spells, staying chilly with lows of 3 to 6 degrees. But later in the night, outbreaks of rain spreading across the country with strengthening winds. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Now this week, a huge sum of cash to give away on Friday. All you have to do is know the cash machine prize if we call you on Friday, and we're making it very easy. In the cash machine this week, €70,000. So 70,000 euro. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock on Friday, and then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. The exact amount in euro and cents, and the cash is yours. So remember, the amount for Friday is €70,000. Over 18s only. Text costs €2.50. You're playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Oh!
Now, welcome along, Football Show. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent alongside me. Good evening.
Good evening, Joe.
Champions League's getting interesting. Well, in the sense that only one of the groups was in any way interesting because most teams knew their fate. But the Spurs group was interesting in advance, and it's becoming more interesting across the evening, Dan.
The interesting thing that could have happened has happened.
Yes.
In the sense that Marseille, despite being deprived the presence of a portion of their fanatical support, are still doing enough to unsettled Spurs. 67% possession, I think, in the first half they had, and a 1-0 lead, more to the point. So
they've been dominant. You suspect Spurs went out with that horrible thought in their head: once we don't get beaten, we're okay, and maybe it's hard to assert yourself. And Conte in the stand, Son went off injured midway through the game. A lot of things are not going the way they would have liked. So it's Marseille 1, Spurs 0. Second half just about to start because there were 7-8 minutes of added time in the first half in that game. And crucially, Sporting Lisbon 1-0 up against Frankfurt. So that means, as things stand, Sporting would top the group, Marseille would qualify in second, and Spurs would be in third. Elsewhere, it's as you were. These groups were all decided before tonight. Napoli and Liverpool both going through, 0-0 at Anfield. Napoli 16 points, Liverpool 13 points. So Napoli first, Liverpool second. Then we have Porto and Club Brugge, again, both already through this evening. Bayern and Inter, both already through. Bayern with 18 points, Inter with 10. Latest in that game is Bayern Munich 1, Inter 0. Bayern at home this evening. It was Pavard with the goal for Bayern this evening. So, again, the real source of interest is in Marseille, the game in front of us. And Conte and Spurs haven't been phenomenal at times chasing games. Bournemouth, an exception obviously of late, but more set up to counter and to contain. But they're going to have to get a goal here minimum.
Yeah, and like as much as they've, I know you're right to mention the Bournemouth game, but like as much as they've had their difficulties in the league lately, you're sort of just assumed, and maybe it's like we talked a lot here about like the sort of the power of the Premier League and how their clubs can sort of, you know, just becoming, they have an ability to sort of saunter through some of these competitions with a sort of a handful of exceptions. Didn't really get the sense that this was a realistic scenario that they would go out tonight, you know, go out the Champions League tonight. And even the tone of some of the coverage leading up to the game, I know there was a sense of, oh yeah, this is a big match, but I think in the back of the head, a lot of people just assumed they'll be fine. You know, Marseille are not a superpower team in the context, and the sort of this Premier League outfit will get it done. But they're just in a pure cup tie territory now. Like, you know what I mean? It's not. It's at that stage where it's, yeah, just like 45 minutes and see if you got the sort of I don't know, the bottle, the character. You know, Roy Keane would just say this is all about Spursy at the moment, wouldn't he? Spurs doing Spurs things.
Mm-hmm. Liverpool this evening 0-0. Alisson in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Konate, Van Dijk, Tsimikas, and then a midfield three of Milner, Fabinho, Thiago, Mo Salah, Firmino through the middle, and Curtis Jones, the Liverpool team this evening. So 0-0, not much on the line here. I was watching a reasonable proportion of Jurgen Klopp's pre-match press conference. He talked at one stage for 6 minutes uninterrupted.
Yeah.
And he was still in very good form. He was messing with reporters when they were forgetting to pass the microphone, so they were off mic. At one stage he was talking about, you know, sleepless night because of, you know, thinking about the goal that we conceded, the second goal that we conceded against Leeds, given sleepless night. But then he was saying, but that's not the, you know, I'm 55 years old, I have to get up and go to the toilet a lot these times. You know, it's not the real, I wasn't sleepless about the goal either. And he said, people say I've lost my energy. He said, I'm full of energy, I'm feeling great. But he did also say this won't be a quick fix. Interestingly, on Virgin last week, Damien Delaney of the opinion that Liverpool, I don't know, has he heard this through the grapevine or, you know, people in football talk, that Liverpool perhaps got their pre-season all wrong, which would be staggering given the expertise which has been on display in that department over the last number of years. They've been physically as good as any team there has been. So I don't know. Yeah,
I remember there was that, wasn't there that thing at the start of the season where they arranged a friendly, a closed doors friendly, I think it might even have been against Aston Villa, for the day after the opening game away to Fulham, where they were very poor, and then they obviously felt, okay, we need some more minutes in the legs. And I think actually Mark Lawrenson was on here talking about that at one stage, suggesting there was a feeling that they felt they're potentially undercooking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you go through the grueling season that they had last year, playing all the games they possibly could, there's a World Cup coming in this year. You know, sometimes can you overthink something to the point of then actually it not being the best thing to do at all? Like, did they try and tailor, and this is just, as you said, it's all a degree of speculation with this, like, did they just tailor their schedule to prepare for the, you know, to be conscious of the year they've had and what's coming, and just leave themselves a little bit short?
Well, the sense I got from Damien's comments, for instance, was of overtraining.
Oh, really? Okay, in response to that.
The other end.
Then why would they have the extra game at the start of the season?
I don't know. Again, it's just one of the theories out there. I mean, it would explain some of what's going on, because it's just so staggering and unexpected and abrupt. We're talking about a team that have won 4 games in 12 in the Premier League. they're now being talked as being 15 points off Arsenal. That increasingly is an irrelevant statistic. They're 8 points off the top four. Forget about Arsenal on the top of the table. That's done. To be fair, the Leeds game is an interesting one in that they still created a lot of chances. And Darwin Núñez, for one, should have taken some of them. There was the one where he should have lifted it over the keeper a bit earlier. He went more for power. And Mellier made lots of saves. None of them were world class.
No.
They were doing your job, as a certain pundit might say.
Yeah.
And the other thing which jumped out was a point of attitude. Maybe with different players there are different things going on. With Van Dijk, it's hard to figure out the malaise. But certainly if you think of the Van Dijk that we saw against Manchester City, sliding full length to stop crosses coming in so sharp and on top of everything, and then you think of the Van Dijk, for instance, for the Gomez mistake. Now ultimately it's Gomez's mistake and it's unfortunate Alisson slips. But you just feel like the Van Dijk that we saw against Manchester City was more on his toes, more alive to danger, was just so flat-footed to that moment even happening. And again, it's dreadful from Gomez. I had a glance back at it. He never once looked up at Alisson to see where Alisson was. He was operating entirely on assumption. And so the fault does rest with him, and it's unfortunate Alisson slips. But that Van Dijk moment of just complete flatness.
Yeah.
You know, if he hadn't been so good against City, then you would say, oh, there's something off there, like physically, or maybe his head isn't right in some way. Well, sorry, I do think it's that his head's not right.
Well, yeah, it must be.
His head's not right.
But I don't know. Like, is the City just that, like, the great players can elevate themselves through a performance, but it could be something physically that, like, over time it just catches. That it's like, what will we see from him at the World Cup? He missed the last major tournament because of his injury. With his country. They didn't make the one prior to that. I think that's correct. So, like, he's not necessarily had a great run of major tournaments. Maybe like this is something that's huge around the horizon. Do you lose 1% or a couple of percent? I don't know. Again, you're just like you're asking the question because you're basically talking about a mental equation there, and you kind of wonder, is he one of those players? What I always think, and what I think about his situation though, he is like, he had that period of thinking this guy is like, he's infallible here. Yes. Like but once he loses that aura, like, does that sort of have an impact on the players around him too? Like, you clearly, like, you have this presence of this reassuring presence who sort of digs people out of problems, or he's their leader, or however you want to phrase it. And if he's just that, you suddenly think, God, he's not the player he was now, or he's more liable to be a mistake now. There's almost a collective loss of confidence that maybe can come with that. Like, you lose that steel that you felt you had. Although, like, Liverpool at their best, it's not even that it was steel, it was that they were so much better at taking risks than others because they had these sort of world class ability to cover. Like, they always took risks in how they played, and now they're just getting punished more regularly.
It's really interesting you say that, because Klopp was talking about the goal which frustrated him, the second goal, and he said that what happened there in his mind was that a bunch of the Liverpool players assumed they were about to win the ball, and if they all moved up into certain areas, they would have overloads and be ready to really take advantage of winning the ball. And then crucially, as has been an aspect of their play this season, they didn't win the ball, and suddenly they're so exposed. And it's not a fun back four to play for at the moment. They were exposed countless times in that game on Saturday. It wasn't just that one moment where they thought they were going to win the ball and they gambled. There were at least 5-6 occasions where, and it's odd in a team that had Fabinho in it, the experience of Thiago, and Harvey Elliott, who, even though he's playing a lot of games, is working very hard. He's young and enthusiastic. But the amount of times that Fabinho, Thiago and Harvey Elliott found themselves sprinting back towards their own goal, 4 or 5 Leeds players in behind them running at their back four. It's just really, like, there was a wildness to it which has often suited Liverpool, but that wildness doesn't suit them anymore. Physically, they don't want that type of game, it seems, at the moment. See, this is part of the problem. I think I remember being here, I think it was David Moyler was on. Now, ironically, it was the day before the City game when there was a sense of, like, they're going to get hammered if they keep playing the way they are, and they weren't. But part of the discussion was, and the point you're sort of looking to make, like, when the problems that they're suffering are so tied in with their identity, when they're good, if you know what I mean, like the way they play, like you naturally think, okay, what are they going to do? Are they going to suddenly be a little bit more conservative in their play? But that neutralises their strength, and clearly, like, the coach is not sort of disposed towards doing things
in that way. But then, as a result, are you in a situation where they just go down on this ship, if you know what I mean? Like, we're not expecting that he's suddenly, like a manager under pressure, suddenly going to decide, actually, we'll tell one or two of our midfielders to just sit here. That's not going to be their response. But that makes it hard, because they just really, like, how do they fix their problem? You're just going to do what you do better. Be a better version of yourself. Like, that's a very simple fix.
I was thinking about the exact point watching them, where they're doing what they used to do so well really badly at the moment, but reverting to a completely different approach, which they'd be grand at and would have a much lower ceiling, can't be the answer either. So they're stuck between, do we shoot for the stars here, or do we just become more solid?
Yeah, and like, I suppose the fans and people listening will say, well, just get better players as well. Like, get a better all round, say, midfielders, who are better able to sort of do some of the, who are better suited to sort of backtracking, to sort of to covering ground and whatever it might be. But like, that seems a bit simplistic as well too, like,
and
for
to what extent is he going to be supported in the transfer market will be interesting as well.
Yeah.
So Spurs have equalised. Brilliant header, Lenglet with a header. It's a really good header. They cut to Antonio Conte in the stands, and not a peep of emotion. Bored, I would say.
Bored or angry?
No, bored. Maybe he
brooding.
Just doesn't like it up in the stands. He needs to be.
He needs the energy of being
on the ground, and he looked like somebody who now thought, there'd be no one getting chips at the moment if I was to nip out.
They have started the second half again a little bit like a team. It's like, we're actually better than these. Let's just get on about showing that. And they had one very good chance early before they've scored. So it was 10 minutes in, and they've sort of broken the Marseille line 3 or 4 times. So that would appear to be quite encouraging for them.
Meanwhile, at Old Trafford, quite an interesting moment when Manchester United win the game and De Gea does his thing. There's a moment where he makes a save, the header, and it cuts to David Moyes, and you didn't need to be a lip reader to hear David Moyes say, F me, what a save. And he had that, Moyes, when he's not least at Old Trafford, had that haunted, he's got quite a wide-eyed way of watching football.
I think it just brings it back when he goes, he walks in the door, and all of a sudden he's like, it's like someone gone back to an old haunt from the younger days, and they suddenly realise, God, things that happened here.
He must get a feeling there. So he had that kind of haunted look and, staring intently into the distance. And it was a real rearguard action, Manchester United, everybody fist pumping afterwards. One of those morale boosting type wins where they had to dig deep.
And they were hanging on though.
Just hanging on.
West Ham just kept making chances. It was actually kind of impressive. Even that right shot at the end.
Yeah.
In fairness to him, that was going in.
In fairness to him,
you have to caveat that with he just keeps showing different sides to his game that are
if he does anything good, do you have to say
it's
in fairness
mandatory?
to the lad?
This is the national. As an Irish person, I feel obliged to say in fairness to him.
Yeah.
While applying some praise. I don't feel that way with Grealish actually. Definitely feel that way with Rice.
Well, actually, Rice did the interview on the touchline with Dave Jones, Louis Saha, wearing sunglasses first on Punditry. Did you see that?
I didn't actually see. I heard some reference to it. I know you were talking about commentary and stuff earlier, but this is one of these games where I just saw the football.
You didn't miss much.
No.
It was Louis Saha, Jamie Redknapp and Gary Neville. And I thought, in fairness to Declan Rice, he was being interviewed pre-match, and he was asked, playing at Old Trafford, raise your game, the usual. And then he was asked a question. I thought, well, he's not going to answer that, which was, what's your role today? And I thought, go out there, blah, 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 non-answer. And instead he said, my job today is to watch Bruno. He's the one, he's in my area of the pitch. I have to close him down. I have to stop him getting into spaces. So I've really got to look after Bruno Fernandes today. In fairness to him. But it was great.
But I think Declan Rice just says what he... I don't think Declan Rice has that footballer's filter. This is what gets him into trouble.
He says what he means, like, I'm playing for Ireland.
Exactly, but he says, I love it more than anything in this world. He was always a great interview, even when he was with Ireland. He'd give you that extra line, that extra mile.
Well, it was good.
He even spoke about going out to buy the newspapers and reading stuff about himself, and very that. That's why there would be some people who would think, Declan Rice, if he was asked to play for anyone, he'd relish it. Declan, would you consider playing for France? I mean, that'd be good, wouldn't it? I'd play with. You know what I mean? He's very he gives you what you want. Like, is he going to be a pundit in 20 years' time, or is he going to be like that light entertainment presenter footballer?
Well,
he could definitely be the latter, I'd say.
There's a hybrid now.
Yeah.
Not going to name names.
Oh, come on, name the names.
But funny, actually.
Jermaine Genus, is that the name you're thinking of? Or
he's a bit more cracked than Genus. I will be like. Who
are you thinking about? I don't know who you're thinking about.
Micah Richards.
Yeah.
You know, fun persona, bit of punditry thrown in.
But I'm on about like light entertainment.
Present.
I mean like Jermaine Genus like presents like the one show. I'm talking about Declan Rice is definitely.
You think you present the one show?
No, he'd be a different version. He'd be on
like a League of Their Own.
He'd be one of those, yeah.
Captain on a League of Their Own.
He'd be a captain, yeah, potentially. Yeah.
I give you that, because actually Carragher and Neville, when they interviewed each other, I can't remember who interviews who. I think Neville interviews Carragher on the overlap, and they were discussing who'd, take over.
Oh yeah, is that when they went to Liverpool? I think that was the one. Yeah,
who'd take over the Monday Night Football mantle? Who's next? And it's funny, they both said they thought Rice had something about him. Anyway, post-match, Rashford's interviewed again. It's Zaha, Redknapp, and Neville, and it was just in the midst of his interview, he just drops in the line. He says, "Last year, mentally, I wasn't in the right headspace to play good football, or to play football." I think he said, and it wasn't picked up upon, which was a touch frustrating. I think sometimes when there are 3 to 4, how many does it need to change a light bulb? How many do you need to interview that one guy? There's a sense that I need to get my question in next, as opposed to everybody going, wait, what?
Yeah.
You weren't in the right headspace to play football last year. What was going on? So we don't know whether it was all the charity stuff or something else.
Missing the penalty in the Euros final, I'd say, would probably be up there.
Yeah,
which I always think that like Saka and Arsenal and look what he's doing is incredibly impressive, because when you consider, I mean, we're not English, we're not there, but when you consider what a moment that must have been. Maybe it was because a couple of players missed penalty. It wasn't that one player, Gareth Southgate style, didn't quite shoulder the burden, if you know what I mean. But like, Saka's incredible, really, for a young player. That could have broken him. Like that type of experience. But Rashford, because he had a little bit of the backlash to his he needs to concentrate on his football line, which was Rashford has problems. It must be because he does this stuff off the park. Like this is my preconceived sort of notion that I'm now going to use confirmation bias to decide this is the case. And he maybe suffered a little bit more from that. That. But I don't know, it could be anything else, as you say. But that is something that is, I think Gary Neville walking around the streets with Marcus Rashford would probably ask the follow-up question to that.
Yeah, definitely would. And then, of course, there was Ronaldo blanking Neville, which is the big talking point.
This is what
this is the good stuff. This is where we are. I'm sure you saw this.
Yeah, I mean, I did. And I saw it then. He got a bit of a response. He got was he slagged by his fellow pundits over this, as you do, Neville?
Oh, he was with Micah Richards and Roy Keane elevator. It's mad, isn't it? It's just this world of never-ending content with all the pundits. I was even thinking, where are Micah Richards, Gary Neville and Roy Keane? What are they even at in that lift? Because they weren't doing the game together there. Is it just like, do they go back to like a punditry house? Is it like an influencer house, like the TikTok house?
It could be. I mean, they all have their little side projects around it as well, don't they? So, as in like the podcast spinning out from the show or whatever.
Well, if you didn't see that, they're in a lift and Micah Richards jokingly says to Gary Neville, I heard he blanked you or something like that, and starts laughing. And Roy Keane says, what did he say? And Gary said, oh, he's talking about Ronaldo blanking me. And to which Neville sort of said, why does he care what I have to say? I mean, of course he's going to care what the most influential pundit, former teammate, is saying on television about him. So, but it is churlish all the same of Ronaldo. That was my main thought on that. And I also thought Neville saw it coming. He never moved the way Redknapp did to say hi to him. He sort of stood slightly stiffly, as if maybe through back channels it had been made clear to him that Ronaldo hadn't been best pleased. Oh,
gosh, it's all a bit embarrassing, really, isn't it?
It is very childish, isn't it?
It is, that is the whole Ronaldo thing, and it's like, and I've no doubt. I think all the great players defending Ronaldo, I just think some of them just don't want the hassle of having a go at him
or losing that
that relationship,
that number in your phone.
Yeah, I think there's a massive element to that. And I think this can happen. Like it can happen here. Like you've sort of great international players sort of coming towards the end of a career. I think it's sort of can sometimes be difficult for some of their ex-teammates if they're speaking about them.
Yeah.
You know?
I might want to...
Yeah. Like, I think when Robbie was coming towards the end of his Ireland career, I think it was difficult for people who got on great with him, you know, who sort of really liked him and were, you know, big teammates of his, but there came a stage towards the end, it was like, you know, maybe he doesn't need to play every game here, you know, maybe he needs to be occasionally taken out of the side, and you could sense a discomfort, you know, with people, because, you know, and in a way there's something natural about it, you know, you've soldiered through certain scenarios and, you know, together, and like you have this big force of personality, and, you know, I don't want to fall out with someone over this, you know, and there's a sense of, like, you know, respect the name, you know, and you sense, like, you get that vibe off it. Like, I mean, and like, I'm not saying that he's one of these, like, he's an instance of someone who would think differently, but you're reading stories about Rio Ferdinand, like, he was involved in, like, you know, big part in making Ronaldo go to the club, so he's not suddenly going to probably sit on the couch and go, actually, here, you know, this is it, he needs to go or something. It's very unlikely to pivot to that, but, like, that's the same type of, like, when you the bigger name pundit you go for, the more likely they are to be, you know, they operate in a certain circle, you know, with some of these people they have to speak about. That's just part of the game, you know.
Spurs are now top of the group, given how things have gone.
Because is it a draw in the other game in Frankfurt? Yeah.
Equalised. So they've gone from third to top. So Spurs 9 points, Sporting Lisbon 8 points ahead of Frankfurt, and goal difference is where we are. We're going to take a short break. A few text messages coming. We were talking about Qatar in the last hour, Dan. A few text messages in on that. I know you're going. So we'll come to that in the next couple of minutes. Our football show coverage is brought to you by Sky. Watch all the football you love, including the biggest Premier League games every weekend, live on Sky.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch all the football you love, including the biggest Premier League games every weekend. Live on Sky.
This is News Talk. News Talk Breakfast.
Veganism is a way of living that recognises that other animals are feeling beings, and that if we can live non-violently without harming them, then we should. People are adopting this way of living in alignment with the beliefs they already hold.
News Talk Breakfast with Ciara Kelly and Shane Coleman.
In association with AIR.
Weekday mornings at 7 on News Talk.
Imagine a better way to manage your energy with a smart plan from Bord Gáis Energy. Our smart plans, like Free Time Saturday or Free Time Sunday, can help you lower your bills and reduce your energy usage. Find a smart plan that works for you and your home at bordgashenergy.ie/smart. Free energy units are available from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday or Sunday each week with this tariff. Customers can choose Saturday or Sunday. Smart meter required. Terms and conditions apply. See bordgashenergy.ie.
Your van. It's everything. Your supplies carrier, your toolbox, your workmate, your business card. If it's reliable, your business is reliable. So if you're upgrading to a new 231 or looking to switch to an electric van, choose a Ford Transit and maximise your productivity. The Ford commercial vehicle range, including the new all-electric e-Transit, is now ready for your business in 2023. Ford Commercial Vehicles, driving productivity. Visit Ford.ie for latest promotions.
Island's Edge Stout is less bitter, like Ian Hughes from Antrim. Ian.
Well, my brother-in-law has this massive gaff. He's got extensions on the extensions. New car. He's got new teeth. Raking it in, he was. Yeah, but why be better?
Yeah, there's no need. There's no need.
No, well, actually, it turns out that he was embezzling funds from the business. Looks like he's going to do time for it.
Oh, that's desperate.
Yeah, really, really dreadful.
Right. Island's Edge. It's better, less bitter.
Get the facts, be drink aware, visit drinkaware.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk.
Now you're very welcome back. Dan, we were talking about Qatar in the last hour on a slight tangent. You're always welcome to drop in and be a guest.
Yeah, I mean, I would be
tangenter.
I'd be partial to a tangent.
Yeah, you would?
Yeah.
Bring something to the party.
Yeah.
So there had been an email in from a listener called Pat, and it was a great email where he just outlined the various ills of this tournament and concluded by saying it's too late now for any meaningful action. Maybe if a big team had pulled out a couple of years ago, there might have been chain reaction and we might have had this thing move somewhere else, but that's not going to happen at this stage, this late in the day. So I'll be boycotting it, and I would love if thousands, maybe millions did similar and the viewing figures were down, and at least it would be some kind of message or reprimand for FIFA and all concerned. And so we were chatting about that on a slight tangent, and everybody is just pretty disgusted as the reality of the thing takes shape, and just the knowledge it's going to go off, and that'll be the end of all the talk about migrant workers and their rights and the various issues people have. It will just fade into the distance, and FIFA will be happy and Qatar will be happy. And this has happened in real time. We've known for 8 years of the abuses of migrant workers, and it's never really been sorted out, which is the staggering thing. So just one text in to round off the discussion. Lads, I'm the biggest soccer fan. I've never missed any World Cup game since I was 8 years old. The World Cup always a very special time for our family. Our son Barry was born during the 98 World Cup. I was the happiest mum ever. It was just me and my son in Mount Carmel Hospital watching all of the games every afternoon and evening. Visitors always knew not to visit in hospital if there was a game on. My son Barry won the amazing prize to walk out with Flora Malouda as the player's escort at the 2006 World Cup. I have made the decision to boycott the World Cup in 3 weeks' time in Qatar. On the one hand, it would be very hard not to watch the games, but the thousands of lives lost in building stadiums due mainly to very poor safety standards, Qatar's awful treatment of people from the LGBT community and the treatment of women generally, and their disgusting human rights record make it impossible to watch or support this tournament in any way. FIFA should hang their heads in shame for awarding this World Cup tournament to Qatar. So that's two, certainly, who are boycotting the tournament. I dare say they'll be in the tiny 0.00001% minority, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I feel like as the tournament gets closer, I'm sort of just flickering through the star there, for example, like on one page you have Pogba's out the World Cup, Bale in a race to be fit. Like it's close now. It's like November the 1st. It's right on top of us. So there's always going to be these news stories that probably accompany every World Cup. Who's injured? Who's going to be in squads? See, Japan named their squad today. There's going to be that. England's long list is getting out there. But I think people are probably talking about a scenario that I don't think is going to unfold, and that everyone is going to lose themselves in the World Cup and lose sight of this completely. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the discussion of this World Cup is going to be dominated by this subject. I feel I feel that in terms of the coverage that comes out of there, and I am heading over myself to work. I feel like every day there's going to be an awareness of what's happening. Will there be sort of protests or gestures and stuff, and I feel that that's always going to be there with this competition. Now, does that in any way take away from the basic point of anyone wanting to boycott or anyone feeling that that's what should happen? No, definitely not. But my own perspective on it, I think it was Pat did reference the idea if a big nation had pulled out, what if Germany had pulled out, say, 8 years ago? The problem with Qatar was the damage was done once the vote was made, and even if there'd been a move a couple of years back, say 4 or 5 years ago, to take it out of there, unfortunately at that stage, a lot of the workers would have already moved there. That would have also created a human rights disaster, maybe even a bigger one. If you've all of a sudden all these people moved to the country, and now the construction is now going to stop. These stadiums actually aren't needed because we've taken the tournament away from here. What would happen to them then? This is the thing. Once the decision was made to bring the tournament to Qatar and the wheels were set in motion, the damage was done. And there possibly was no going back from that. And you see now, most of the people who made the decision aren't really involved anymore. You do sense you sort of would encounter people sort of from the FIFA sort of working for FIFA or whatever. I wouldn't think it'd be wrong to say that they probably can't wait till it's over, in the sense of I'm not sure we'll ever see anything like this happen again, to this extent. I think they've made some changes to how tournaments are awarded now as well subsequently. So this is the last the last phase in a way of this chapter, and it's a horrible chapter, and all the people can do now is probably highlight it at every turn, you know, and talk about it at every turn. But of course, people will say that's completely empty. And is it true that you know, if something mad happens on the pitch in that first week, or Messi does something amazing, you know, will people lose themselves in it? They will. Yeah. They will. I mean, and I'm very conscious, you often talk about people, you know, talk about whataboutery by referencing past examples, but I mean, you know, people still look back in time, probably look at Argentina's World Cup in '78. I mean, bloody hell, what was going on there at the time? Often people will reminisce about moments from that tournament and make no reference to that. You know, people talk about famous boxing fights, talk about Rumble in the Jungle. There's a bit of a context there. I think people now, I'm not sure people are going to talk about events that happened in Qatar in 20 years without referencing where it was. I mean, the fact that it's in November, the fact that there's all the story of the Carabao World Cup is almost Qatar, you know, that this is happening. And I feel like people are saying, no, people are just going to get lost in this and take their eyes off. I don't think they ever will completely. But that's just my opinion. It could be different. It could be, I see in America, is it Fox who have the rights, or whoever has the coverage in America? They've made the decision to not reference any of these issues during the tournament. They've decided that they're not going to be you know, engaging in sort of big discussions on their coverage about the rights and wrongs of it being there, because this is in line with sort of their approach to similar tournaments. And that wouldn't be for me now, I have to say. But I think generally in this part of the world,
interesting,
you know, that will always be, that's it's. I mean, it's getting so much louder. There's stuff happening every day now, and I feel like it's not going to go away from that point of that discussion.
I do think that print journalism will do a very good job, in part because it really lends itself to well thought out, crafted pieces, taking a look at the bigger picture, and there's also the space for a piece on page 19, destroying and picking apart the FIFA decision, and on page 20 a match report. I think
I take your point. Yeah.
They sit very well beside each other, and I suspect on radio and podcast similarly there'll be lots of discussions. I'm very interested to see the live broadcasts, because I think, to be fair, and even having worked on them on Virgin versus here, it's a harder space to navigate conversations about the deaths of 6,000 people, and then, because television is so tight, for instance, within 40 seconds segue into, but man, this game is going to be so good. It's not as easy a gear shift.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be trickier, especially whatever about, I think my guess would be on the first night, BBC, ITV's coverage, RTÉ's coverage, there'll be a discussion, there might even be a report as an insert, you know, akin to, you remember when Cheltenham returned after COVID,
yeah,
and clearly ITV were thinking, well, how do we handle the controversy last year, and it was an insert. I think Piers Morgan was part of it, and then it was back to the live chat, and it was a quick, relatively self-contained 1 minute of, look, you know, final words, word from you, done, we're out. And I thought that was how they handled it. And I think that's how the main channels might handle this situation. Because I saw, it was interesting, there was a clip, Gary Neville was on the Newsagents podcast, Emily Maitlis and various other colleagues. She left the BBC to do that.
Yes.
And he was on, and he was adamant that we'll be talking about this on air on the first night and right the way through. And
hasn't he done a deal to do some stuff with Qatari TV though, I think, as well? Yeah.
Gary Neville's doing Be In, that was all I knew.
Yeah. Who was like, you know, they're sort of a from that neck of the woods, so to speak, you know, because Gary Neville did I would say, like, he did
Lineker I'm talking about.
Oh, Gary Lineker. Oh, apologies. Sorry, Gary Lineker said it.
No, Gary Lineker.
Neville.
Did I say Gary Neville?
I'm feeling he might have, yeah.
Excuse me, he's on the brain.
Yeah.
Gary Lineker, was talking to former BBC colleague Emily Maitlis on the Newsagents podcast, and he said, we're going to be talking about it on the first night, we'll talk right the way through. And I thought, okay, it's very interesting. And again, like, it's difficult because, to be fair to, I don't know, Alan Shearer or Ian Wright, they're not experts in geopolitical issues, and it can be difficult to go to them by dint of being very good footballers. What can they say about
No,
this?
I know.
You know? So then you got to think, well, do you bring in expertise? Do you do self-contained packages? Somebody from Amnesty, somebody who's got expertise in the area, somebody who can give, you know, the Qatari side of the story in the interest of balance, and it's a self-contained thing. Do you do that the second night? Do you do it the third night? Do you do it the quarterfinals? You know, I think it's a harder thing for that live broadcast, because I'm talking about this in the build-up to a big kickoff. England, Iran, or, you know, Brazil are playing for the first night. I think it's much harder for live broadcasts around the world to do that, and therefore I don't think in the main they will very often. And so I feel the very serious issues will be consigned to print and those more peripheral.
Yeah, like
and the fact that Fox aren't doing it is
it's very like, and I find it hard to believe that they'll be able to avoid that if there's
isn't it great to be here?
Yeah, like, and then there's like, well, hang on, what's the, you know, I think like it just feels like across the tournament there's going to be stories, right? There's going to be things happening. Like, will there be protests? I see today. One of the stories coming out of England today is that basically the English police, for the first time ever, are sort of sending over people to Qatar who are going to be sort of effectively helping the police, or helping the police there with their policing, in terms of keeping an eye on things. I didn't realise that it's actually Qatar, because I mean it's such a small country, such a small population. They don't really have crime and security issues there. They've had to bring in a lot of police people from other countries, like Turkish police, and I think from Pakistan and various places that are going to have to do a lot of the security around the grounds, and England are doing the same. And like again, like what happens if there's a flare up or there's people arrested, or if some of these things people are talking about fearing happen. Like I think now a lot of the bigger broadcasters, because a lot of them are on social media and that's part of their profile, possibly would have been easier to get away with ignoring it 20 years ago. I don't think they actually can do that now. I think, you know, the sheer volume of comments that will come their way will mean, for their peace of mind, they will probably go there. But I take your point about how often will they actually have the energy to go. What if England start taking off? What if England, I mean, their form isn't great, but what if they're suddenly in a World Cup semi-final or a final? And people are going to appreciate a slot about the ethics of this. To be fair,
like partly when I say that about live broadcast, that's out of a certain sympathy, you know. As Spurs almost score second, they're still 1-1, they're still going through. Like, it's not an easy balance to strike.
No.
So it's not me sitting here saying, well, aren't they all terrible, you know?
There is no easy way. Like, as I said, I mean, as someone who's going myself, like, I know you're thinking about God, like, this is, you know, there's going to be a lot of comments along the lines of why would anyone
I think
go
it's
there?
easier, if you don't mind me saying, I think it's much easier for you going as a clear-eyed, neutral journalist, as opposed to if Ireland were there and what the reader might want would be Ireland mania, we're joyful, we're at the World Cup. How is the injury to
such and such
Nathan Collins? What is the latest? What did the manager have to say about X, Y and Z? Why did he drop so-and-so? Tell me that. Don't be telling me this is all terrible. You know, so it is, I think, it is easier for you to go out there and take almost well, I'm going to go out and see what I see here and report
maybe, yeah. But look, as I said, like people just have a general view of should anyone be there. But like, this is the thing. It's like, this is.
I don't think journalists should boycott it.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, it sounds self-serving of me to say it, but I think no, like you cover the event, like you cover the World Cup wherever it is. Like I went to Russia 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in hindsight, you would think about some elements of that and go, you know.
I guess it depends how you cover it. I mean, I think
exactly.
I think with this, if the simple retort to, well, don't go would be, well, then we're just left with FIFA PR to cover the thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and unfortunately, this is the problem with anyone talking of boycott or anyone taking that stance, is that like the rights are sold now. Like the TV rights are sold. Like bad viewership isn't unfortunately going to be an issue here. The deals are done. You know,
it's the same money either way.
Like unfortunately, like closed doors have shown that football can continue at the highest level with empty stadiums. Like there's a lot of things, like the game will go on. There's always someone there to take it. There's always someone there to buy it. The next World Cup is it's in America, Canada, Mexico 4 years from now. Probably going to be great, you know. So the game will get over this, you know. And I think there's almost a sense of like it's suffering through some of the negative publicity as far as some of the organisers are concerned. But that's why you never let it go, and that's why I think, I mean, like, you know, on one hand you think, God, yeah, you hear great stuff about reforms, and then this week you see thousands of workers have been evicted, you know, with sort of weeks to go, and it's like, no.
Wales have reiterated they're one of 9 European nations who are going to wear this rainbow-coloured One Love armband, and they've said we're prepared to be fined by FIFA if that's what happens, but we're absolutely wearing the armband, and they're one of 9 countries. Gareth Southgate was talking as well. He said, I've been out to Qatar several times. I've met with lots of the workers out there, and they're united in certainly one thing, and that's that they want the tournament to happen, and they want it to happen because they love football. They want football to come to Qatar. I think, who did you talk to? Were they hand chosen?
Yeah,
I wouldn't go down that line.
But there could be. I know, but I mean, I as I said, I've been to the last couple of World Cups, and like certainly even South Africa in 2010. I mean, there'll be a lot of coverage around that of like, again, a lot of problems in the country.
Yeah.
You know, why, like, you know, around like the spend, or you can have like various angles, you know, the government, a lot of issues.
Spend is always,
but it's a big one.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were in Brazil as well. Like, you'd still, like, there's no doubt that there will be people in Qatar, like, very, very excited about the tournament being there. Like, those people do exist. Like, they will exist. And of course, like, yeah, then you can have your experience coloured too much by them, you know. It's like, you know,
let's not have the, I've spoke to the migrant workers there.
I've met to the porter, like, you know, I've met someone in my hotel who's really excited about the football, ergo everything is fine here.
Exactly.
It can't be that, but there will be an element of that too. It's not I don't think it's as black and white as, like, you know, everyone there is suffering you know, hell, and like, people want a very simple explanation that they can buy into. I think there probably is layers to this. Like, you would have people in touch with you, like Irish people over there who would defend Qatar, you know, and they will defend it, and you will see that pushback, I think, across, and these voices trying to get out across the month as well too, and their voices will also have to be heard. Like, you know, that's the thing. I mean, some of the elements of the reporting leading up to it haven't been perfect either, you know, in terms of some figures that were put about. But I mean, clearly, I don't think there's any justification still for the tournament being awarded there. You know, that's I don't think anyone could argue that.
You'll be there in 3 weeks.
Yeah, 18, 20 days now away. Like, once you get to November the 1st, it is very real. Yeah, and I mean, you know, but everyone is so used to the rhythm of the sort of football calendar being in a particular way. And you kind of forget that this is going to be a month stuck into November and December, finishing the Sunday before Christmas. It's unusual.
The Football Show coverage is brought to you with Sky. Watch all the football you love in one place, including the biggest Premier League games every weekend live on Sky. Latest at Anfield, Liverpool are now 1-0 up against Napoli. So Liverpool 1, Napoli 0 into the 94th minute. It was Mo Salah in the 85th minute with the goal for Liverpool. So Liverpool 1-0 up after 94 minutes. Salah with a goal in the 85th. And as things stand, Spurs, bar late concession, they're currently 1-1. Oh, they've almost just conceded.
That would have been a great commentator's curse moment there.
Oh,
that is
wow.
Deep cross to the far post. All the momentum with the player coming in. If he just gets it on target, he scores. But he doesn't get it on target.
How did he miss that?
That's a really bad miss. He's slipped in unmarked to the far post. He's inside the 6-yard box. The perfect pace that he just needs to get the right connection, and it'll go past Loris. And he almost tries to.
The manager turned around in disbelief. The manager's facial expression suggested that he agreed with you. How did he miss that?
Yeah, he almost like diverted his head to try and glance it to the corner, when really he just needed a direct connection, and it would be a goal.
Wow. Okay, Spurs still going through. Back in 1 sec.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch all the football you love, including the biggest Premier League games every weekend. Live on Sky.
This is News Talk.
We've heard it's getting double takes. You might have seen it around. And you know you want to know more. There are a lot of things we could say about the new Opel Astra, but we don't have to. In fact, will let you find out for yourself. Because once you sit in, you realise that the new Opel Astra speaks for itself. Test drive the new Opel Astra at your local Opel dealer now.
TradePoint is now open at B&Q. Are you in the trade? Whether you're a builder, decorator or kitchen fitter, you could be eligible for our brand new membership, built especially for the trade. Become a TradePoint member in-store and receive our 10% off introductory discount with no qualifying spend, as well as many other benefits. Speak to a member of our team in any B&Q store today. Offer valid until at least the 31st of July 2023. Exclusions, terms and conditions apply. Visit tradepoint.ie for full details.
Are you at high risk from COVID-19? COVID-19 doesn't wait, and neither should you. If you are at high risk of severe COVID-19 and showing symptoms, it's time to act immediately. Assess yourself for symptoms, confirm through COVID-19 testing, and if positive, talk to your healthcare professional to seek clinical assessment and advice. Visit knowyourrisk.ie to find out if you are at high risk of severe COVID-19. This message is brought to you by Pfizer and supported by the Irish Heart Foundation.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk.
Welcome back. 90 minutes on the clock. Still Marseille 1, Spurs 1. Antonio Conte positively bored out of his mind in the stands. He doesn't like it up there.
Yeah, well, I mean,
not for him.
Well, I'm not sure about bored. I think he looked a little bit more stressed there, to be honest. As though,
he was stressed.
What am I like? You know, we have just conceded a gilt-edged chance to go out of this competition, and I'm sitting here next to whoever. Like, you know,
I think his brother might be next to him, part of the coaching staff.
Oh,
they
yeah,
also have about 6 players ahead of the ball, and they're being hit here in the break. I don't think Conte wanted them to push for a second at the expense of giving away another chance to Marseille, who are in the box and shoot. Conte's like, why did 5 players get ahead of the ball there?
Conte's like, I need. He's telling his brother, like, because that's right. His brother is able to provide contact with the bench. Yeah. It's sort of a slight loophole in the rules. You know, it's what it doesn't tell us. You know, is illegal. And I'd imagine he's saying, is that connection working? Can you get that message down?
So Conte can't talk directly to the bench, but he can say something to his brother beside him, who can then talk directly to the bench.
Yeah. I mean, obviously being top would be nice, but you'll see like some other, like Liverpool are second, makes, you know, like you'll see. I mean, it makes a bit of
Real
odds.
Madrid are top even.
Yeah, it makes a bit of odds. You know, your percentage chances are better being top, but.
You mentioned, we were just chatting on WhatsApp, I said anything you want to touch on. There's a good documentary on Channel 4.
Yeah, so I was watching. I mean, it's very World Cup related.
Yeah.
I think it's like Italia '90 when football changed forever. If people can maybe, I presume, it's true. You know, can you get your Channel 4 back or all 4? Sometimes you can.
The 4 demand is amazing.
Is it really? Okay.
Oh.
I wouldn't have used it too much, but
Daniel, download the app. It has everything that's ever been on Channel 4, and you can Chromecast it.
Well, that's great. Well, then people aren't going to. If you've missed this, it's a 3-parter, which I think. I mean, it was only someone recommended to me yesterday, and you would think it's going to be a documentary like about all the football in Italia '90, but the first episode wasn't about football at all, and it was about the English fans travelling to Italia '90 and following on from a decade of hooliganism. You know, from Heysel, Tony Evans is involved. He's one of the contributors, speaking about sort of football in the '80s. Margaret Thatcher sending the Minister of Sport, Colin Moynihan, out to Italia '90, effectively saying to the Italian police who were dealing out some heavy-handed treatment, more of the same, please, keep it going. And sort of interviewed a number of, I suppose, firm leaders from the various clubs at the time, speaking about the movement, not glamorising it, but also speaking about it in a little bit more nuanced way. Like there was you know, some fella who I can't remember which club he was running with, but he was talking about how, yeah, listen, the clothes, the fashion, all of that really appealed to me, you know. But it's more of a sort of it's a broader sort of piece, you know, an insight into England in the 80s leading up to the tournament, because the first minute or two it's like Stuart Pearce and Paul Gascoigne and various people interviewed, and I think it's going to be one of those documentaries, but it's actually not. And with a couple of words from the Italian police officers of the era, speaking about their memories. So one episode down, 2 more to go.
What's it called?
It looks decent. Italia '90 when football changed forever. I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Very good. OTB AM is coming at you tomorrow morning. Shane Hannon and Johnny Ward in the building.
What a team.
What a team. Martin Lipton will be on, Alex Kavanagh, Paddy Stapleton as well. So 7:30 as usual on OTB AM. So the latest in the Champions League is that Liverpool finished 2-0 up against Napoli. They got another late goal. So Mo Salah on 85 minutes and Darwin Núñez in the 100th minute.
I wonder, was it a break where he had the chance to pass and he just didn't?
I know, well, he scored either way.
Yeah.
So 2-0. Rangers 1, Ajax 3. We have Bayer Leverkusen